The four types of operatic music. One of the nice things about opera is it's very easy to predict what kind of music you're going to hear at any part of a drama. So let's take a look at a list of them. The first three of them are monodies, that is, songs that have a melody with some sort of simple accompaniment. They are aria, arioso, and recitative. The last of them, chorus, is always a polyphonic composition that is not monodic in terms of texture. Let's begin with chorus. Now, when you see the word chorus, you automatically have some vision of what a chorus is. When I was in high school, I for a while imagined that a chorus was a vocal ensemble like a choir. I thought of it, in fact, as a synonym for it. But then I remember reading an ancient Greek play, Antigone, by Sophocles, and I saw that there were passages in it that were for a chorus. And that's when I first realized that chorus was not a musical term, but rather that it was a dramatic term. Let's take a look at what a chorus is. Choruses within ancient dramas or in operas serve the same dramatic functions. They often serve the purpose of narration, that is telling a story, dialogue, that is having some sort of a conversation, or commentary, that is saying something about what is happening within a particular drama. You find these sorts of things happening with crowds in classical dramas, and you also find crowds doing the same thing in operas, Broadway musicals, and so on. The musical characteristics of this kind of operatic music are very easy to describe. In fact, we can use the very same words that we use to describe the musical characteristics of the madrigal and the polychoral motet, if we take a look at its texture and at its technique. So like the madrigal and the polychoral motet, the Baroque opera chorus basically has a variety of textures and lots of word or text painting. A variety of textures and lots of word and text painting. A variety of textures and lots of word or text painting. Really, people, you're going to hear this again and again in this course, so make sure you remember it now. Now let's turn our attention to recitative and aria, the two most important, or at least the two most predominant types of monodies that you find in operas. And we're going to make a point-by-point comparison between the two, so please take a look above your podcast screen, take a look at the table that's given there, use that table or copy something like it into your notes to distinguish recitative from aria. In fact, the words themselves suggest something about them. For example, take a look at recitative. The beginning of it looks very much like the beginning of the word recitation. Aria looks a little bit like the word air. In fact, it's the Italian word for air, and air is an old-fashioned word for song in English and in French. So a recitation and some sort of a song. You certainly could tell the difference between a recitation and a song, so I believe that you will have no difficulty whatsoever distinguishing a recitative from an aria. In fact, the two are essentially polar opposites. Let's take a look first at the complexity of these two things. Recitative, as we shall soon see, is a very simple type of operatic music. An aria, on the other hand, tends to be far more complex than any recitative, and in fact it makes good sense. Think of a recitation and of a song. Which of them would be simpler than the other one? It's just that simple. The two vary just as sharply in terms of their characters. Recitative is a decidedly speech-like song, and this makes perfect sense, doesn't it? It looks like the word recitation, so a speech-like song makes perfect sense for this kind of composition. An aria, on the other hand, is a real song, and this makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Because the word aria means air, which literally means song. So it should be very easy for you to remember that an aria is a real song and that a recitative, which looks like the word recitation or the word recite, would be a speech-like song. It's just that simple. These two types of songs are used for completely different dramatic functions. Let's take a look at them. Recitative, the simple speech-like type of song, is used for the functions of narration and dialogue. Telling a story or having a conversation are very routine sorts of activities within a drama, and this very simple kind of music is normally used for those two functions. Aria, however, is reserved for far more elevated dramatic functions like soliloquy, where a character is thinking out loud, and for underscoring strong emotions. So the real songs in an opera are used to reveal the character's thoughts to the audience and to reveal the character's feelings to the audience. Again, notice how different the two are. Recitative for the simple functions of narration and dialogue, aria for the more exalted functions of soliloquy and underscoring strong emotions. The text declamation is different for each of the two, and by this I mean how the text is actually presented. Recitative, that simple speech-like kind of song that's used for narration, which is telling a story, or dialogue, which is having a conversation, has little or no text repetition in it. Think about it. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? If you are going to tell a story, you don't repeat the words in it. If you are having a conversation, saying something once is usually enough. In an aria, however, something that is a real song, that is more complex and used for the purposes of expressing thoughts, as in a soliloquy, or emotions, often has lots of word or text repetition in it. Think to your favorite songs. Don't many of them often have words or phrases that are repeated again and again? They're done this way to make a point, and it makes perfect sense that if you are going to reveal your thoughts secretly to the audience or your feelings to the audience, these important thoughts and feelings need to be underscored somehow, and repetition is one way to do them. Again, the difference between recitative and aria is one of those night and day differences. This is also apparent in the text setting of these two types of songs, that is, how the notes relate to the music. A recitative, a simple kind of song that is speech-like and that is used for rather simple dramatic functions, telling a story and having a conversation, is mostly syllabic. Take a look at the word syllabic. In it you see the word syllable. And what syllabic refers to is music that usually has just one note to a syllable. Syllabic music. Arias, on the other hand, can be very melismatic. Take a look at the word melismatic. You see at the beginning of it the stem mel, which means sweet, honey, or song, and it refers to a kind of music that can have many notes to a syllable. So again, we have a polar opposite. Recitative, which is generally syllabic, and arias, which can be very melismatic. We'll see an extreme example of this later on in this course. There's a difference too in the type of language that's used in these two types of song. The text of recitatives is usually written in prose. After all, it serves very simple functions, telling a story or having a conversation. Arias, however, which are real songs, are basically poems set to music, just like any other song. Finally, we turn to arioso, and arioso is simply a way of referring to something that is somewhere between recitative and aria.